Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're pressure canning split pea and ham soup. I am excited to share this recipe with you because it is one of the easiest recipes to make when you are just getting started with pressure canning, particularly if you are canning complete meals that are ready to eat right off the shelf. I've always thought it was really cool that I could take almost any canned soup that you would find on a grocery store shelf and make it myself without all the chemicals, sodium, and preservatives, and pull it off of my own pantry shelf instead. So let's get into it. This footage is from the night before. I got out all of my canning equipment and I started my stock for my soup. I had 2 leftover ham bones from my family Easter celebration. I actually froze them and I drove them all the way back from Virginia just for this purpose. So all I did was I thawed them in the refrigerator before using them. So what I'm doing here is I'm cutting all of the extra meat off the bones and I'm setting that aside. So next the bone is going to go into the crock pot and I'm just going to cover that up with water and it's going to go all night overnight to make the broth. Now I've also been saving a bunch of end pieces from vegetables and I've been putting them in a bag in my freezer. Things like pieces of onion, carrot, bell peppers, and herb stems and pieces. So I just add a little bit to the freezer bag, each time I make a recipe and have end pieces that would normally go in the compost. So we just cover the whole thing with water all the way up to the top, and I'm going to cook this on low overnight. Now don't worry if you don't have the means to do this step, you can use a bouillon instead. Okay, so I want to give a big shout out and thank you to my Aunt Anna for helping me with canning this recipe and with helping with the baby. Otherwise, I am not sure I would have had time to do it, much less be able to film it as well. So here are some of the main ingredients for the soup. In addition to the broth and the pieces of ham, we're also using fresh carrots from the garden, celery, onion, and potato. We'll add some other seasoning later on in the video as well. Next up, I am just rinsing my jars. Because we are pressure canning, we do not have to pre-sterilize our jars and lids and bands. The heat and the pressure from the pressure canner will do that for us during the canning process. I store my jars clean, so just a quick rinse is all I need to get started on a new canning project. Something interesting to mention is that I am using ball mason jars and lids, and my aunt brought over some golden harvest jars and lids, which I have never actually canned with. So there's always a lot of chatter in the canning Facebook groups that I'm part of as to which brands perform better than others and have a longer lasting seal. So we'll be doing half and half today, and then we'll compare the performance of the 2 different brands of jars. If you have any thoughts on this subject, please let us know in the comments. I love to hear what brands are working the best for other folks. So next up, we're going to start putting our peas in the jar, but I'm just giving them a quick rinse first and sorting through them to make sure that there's no bad ones or no rocks or pebbles that got into the batch. And I just strain them and load them directly into the jars. Now, something that I want to note is I'm using a 1/2 cup measure here, but I actually recommend 1/3 of a cup. I filled these a little too high and realized with the amount of vegetables that I wanted to add that I should go back and take some out. There is going to be a little bit of expansion in the jar, so you always want to leave room for that. I like to place all the jars on a cookie sheet just to make it easy to move things around the kitchen and kind of help maintain any mess. Next up, I was ready to strain the stock. It was looking really good. It went all the way overnight. And to do this, I just first ladled through a colander into another pot and sorted out all of the bigger chunks and pieces. You can see that the meat came just completely off of the bone there. Now I strained it one more time through a finer strainer just to get any of the other chunks out, and it's really not overthinking it, going right back into the crock pot to stay warm. And then it was just time to finish chopping up all of our other vegetables and layering them into the jars. Pretty easy peasy. I'll mention that I consider potato an optional ingredient, but I had a lot of potatoes on hand, and these Yukon Golds add a lot of creaminess. I also ended up peeling a bunch of garlic, and I put about half of a large clove into each jar. And I just threw it right in whole, since the pressure canning process is gonna cook it really well. Also for seasoning, I took dried bay leaf and I tore them in half and put about half of a bay leaf into each jar. I just love that flavor and it worked out really well in the soup. And just like a little assembly line, we had all of our ingredients set up and we just added them to the jars. Next, I'm ladling the hot stock from the crock pot. And it couldn't get any easier than this, guys, and they already look so beautiful. You can tell that we're enjoying lots of conversation in the background. It's always nice to have someone help you with these canning projects. Thanks, Aunt Anna. Next, the all-important step of just getting the air bubbles out. I use this canning tool. It's actually a magnetic lifter to get the rings and to get air bubbles out, but you can use a wooden spoon as well. Always wipe down your rims really good to make sure there's nothing to interfere with the seal. And then from there, you can go ahead and place your lids and bands on. I'm being careful to check that I'm doing the ball lids and bands on the ball mason jars and the Golden Harvest lids and bands on the Golden Harvest jars so that we can compare towards the end of the video. The lids only need to be applied finger tight. You don't need to overscrew it, and that's what I am doing now. And look how pretty they look. They are ready to go into the jacuzzi. I love having the larger size presso canner so that I can do 2 stories of the pint jars and pack a lot in there. Next up, we're gonna look for it to vent steam for at least 10 minutes before we put on the weight. Then we're gonna wait. We process these at 11 pounds of pressure for 75 minutes. Always check the National Center for Home Food Preservation for the recipes that you're doing. Now we wait always for the pressure to come down on its own before we open our canner and check our work. I can tell you right now that at least for this project, all of our jars sealed. There was no difference between the Golden Harvest and the ball, at least for this project. So results may vary, but I was encouraged that we had a good rate here. Now Now, this is the part of the video where I usually say that you listen for the ping, ping, ping. That means everything. But with a lot of these pressure canning projects, the jars are pretty much already sealed. And don't they look awesome? So you'll see that there's some separation between the peas and the vegetables, but not to worry, that beautiful flavor was infused throughout, and you'll just mix it together before you eat. So again, the beauty of this is it is a meal ready to eat right off the shelf. Just pop the seal, pour it into a bowl. I just microwave it for about a minute and it's delicious. So I was actually pretty hungry here, so I ate most of the bowl and it was really good. It turned out great. This ham was a sweeter ham versus a salty ham, and I could really kind of tell the difference. It made the soup turn out sweeter, but it was still very delicious. So that's a wrap on this video, guys. I want to thank you so much for joining me for another canning video. Please consider leaving a comment and subscribing. It's a free way to help me out on my channel, and I really look forward to seeing you guys on the next one. Have a great day.